Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe.
Rorschach's Journal, March 20th, 2021. This is the Film vs. Film podcast. Zack Snyder's Justice League. So we're doing Zack Snyder films. Watchmen versus This is Sparta.
Oh my god.
Hello everyone, I don't know who that guy was, but I think he needed some cough medicine. Yes, this is Zack Snyder films, as Zack Snyder's Justice League will be coming out on the 18th on VOD for us.
Yeah, man.
So let's get straight into it. I think you've guessed, if you haven't looked at the title of the podcast, we're doing 300 and Watchmen. Yeah, I think that guy's gone now.
Let's hope so. And his horrible, horrible impressions. Jesus.
The impression police will be arriving soon. Oh, shit.
Yeah, no. Just need a firing squad.
A bit harsh. Yeah, you've heard him already. It's the Mr. Encyclopedia Man, that is Boaz Dix.
Yeah.
How are you, sir?
I'm very fine, thanks.
Cool. Right, let's get straight into it with 300, which is my pick. I kind of picked this one because Boaz picked Watchmen already. So.
Yeah, you were kind of starved of options.
Of good Zack Snyder films, yeah. Sorry, I know. Sorry. Please don't kill me on social media. But yeah, I do like 300 because I think it's very much Zack Snyder's first foray, if you will, with like big CGI and his signature like speed ramping directional style. So this film is based on a comic book that is also based on historical events in ancient Greece. Sparta and most of Greece were being invaded by the Persians, and the Persians come to Sparta and say, we offer you earth and water, just bow down and kneel to Xerxes, the god king, and
Who is enormous, by the way.
Yeah.
It's like he must be a basketballer in between, conquering the world.
I think they CGI'd his height.
Yeah. It's like Shaq, but white.
So yeah, King Leonidas is like, nope, kick you down the well.
I'd imagine if that scene went that way, it wouldn't be as epic. Nope, kick down the well. No.
Yeah, so King Leonidas, knowing that he can't bring an army because it has to go through the Senate or whatever, so he's like, yeah, we need to stop them first so we can stop the invasion. So he brings a band of 300 of his strongest men to stop the Persians and give Greece time. And yeah, and this is very much a very kind of fantasy-esque retelling in the graphic novel and in this film as well, because you have giant rhinos and elephants, as well,
and monsters from like the pits of hell. They look like,
yeah. Let's go straight into directing then. There's a hell of a lot of slow motion in this film.
Yes. Do you know, actually, true fact, if you take out all of the slow motion, the film is about 20 minutes long. So, yeah.
Do you reckon?
No, of course not. I'm
Not
joking.
45?
Yeah.
I reckon about 45 minutes.
I think probably 45 minutes is very realistic. A lot of slow motion.
Yeah.
But it looks cool, so,
Yeah. But I mean, sometimes it does, certainly later on, it does get a bit like, a bit...
Well, I think that's
a bit boring.
Exactly. Well, this is kind of the main thing. Like, if you see many action films, they will have like maybe one or two super slow motion scenes, and you're like, "Oh, that's so cool." I think Zack Schneider, the way he directs it, and you kind of you get into it by watching 300. Is he loves his slow motion? It's not like, oh, it's cool once or twice. Oh, it'd be cool every time. And yeah, about the... I think it starts to lose its charm after about the 7th time. You're like, yeah.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just Do something different, please.
Yeah, exactly.
But at times, this film gets really dark. I mean, this is actually, you forget this film is actually a 15. It's not a 12 or anything like Watchmen is. And obviously a lot of his, the DC stuff is very much a 12, but his early work is R-rated and a lot of like digital blood and stuff. But yeah, there's one when they're traveling to the Hot Gate, they find like this burned down village and they discover these villagers like all like speared to this dark tree, and the camera just like slowly like pulls out to reveal even more and more people like speared to this tree. It's really quite horrible. You're like, oh my god. And this, it's all kind of like silhouetted a little, and some really dark stuff, and the Spartans like build a wall full of dead Persians as the Malta, as they say.
Yeah.
And there's like 3 beheadings in like 10 minutes. It's like, I'll have the beheading montage now, please.
Yeah. We'll be there for a while.
Bloody hell.
No, a lot of people lose their head. Crazy. I think the most memorable beheading for me is, do you remember when he talks about how they get beaten, and it's like a montage of them kicking loads of ass, and Xerxes is pissed off at his general. So he has like, to be honest, it gets to moments where you think you're tripping balls, like you're not even sure what you're doing. But like his executioner is a man with swords for hands. That's not explained. That comes out of completely nowhere. And he cuts the general's head off. Yeah, I thought, what the hell? But yeah, that's my favourite beheading.
It doesn't just cut his head off. You see the head fly into shot.
Yeah.
See all the, the horribleness, and then it comes down again. I'm like, what the hell? Really, it does glorify it a bit, which is a bit like, oh god. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe it's straight out of the comic book. I'm not sure. I've not read this one. But,
neither
have
have
you
I.
Read this one?
No, actually, I haven't. Actually, I need
Frank
to.
Miller,
I
think, isn't it?
Yeah, Frank Miller. Yeah.
But I do like one of the opening battles actually, where a Persian is just like on his horse, and he says, "Spartans, lay down your weapons." They're first of many warnings. And then, like, the camera's behind the Persian, and you see a spear come out of nowhere that takes him out, and you're just like, yeah, quit negotiating, man. This is like the 3rd time you've done this. And you're basically not listening.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. That was quite a good visual shot of, it just comes out of nowhere and it just kills the guy.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. With the iconic line of, Persian, come and get them.
What's your favourite speed ramping scene?
I suppose this is going to come out as a weird one because I kind of completely forgot about it prior to watching this film again, and then I watched it again. Where, I'm going to go through a few, and then I'm going to think about my favourite.
Yeah.
But, like, even before they even meet them getting destroyed on the waves and stuff, and just, the look of the rain and the thunder and stuff like that. But that's pretty cool. And them all celebrating.
I think they need something to drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Where they push them off the cliffs, that was good. Where they suddenly have like wizards that are throwing like grenades and stuff. I thought that was cool.
Oh, yeah.
And then I love the he knocks down one and his little grenade rolls to a pile of grenades, and then Michael Fassbender is like defending his with his shield, all this. Like basically
a big swooshy turn.
Yeah. Big swooshy action turn, and then boom, covers himself from the the meteorites that are coming off this bloody thing or whatever. Yeah, that was cool. That was a cool shot. There's a lot of cool shots. There's a lot of like coolness.
Yeah.
Where you're like
really like stylized. Yeah.
Very stylized. Where you're like, man, this could be a panel. This could be like a panel in a fight of a manga or whatever, or a comic book, and probably is. I think he probably did. While I haven't read the comic, going by how he directs Watchmen, I wouldn't be surprised if like 90% of it is just panels pulled straight from the source material.
Oh yeah, definitely does that with Watchmen as well.
Yeah.
I think one action scene speed ramping that I thought that really gave me this, comic book panel vibe is that when Leonidas breaks out of formation in the first fight, I think, and he's taking out loads of Persians, and he even spears one in the bollocks, which was quite funny.
Yeah,
and then
he's not having any children.
he spins and then like smashes a dude with the shield, and he's just like standing there all like statuesque, and then just stabs him. That was quite cool. But you have a lot of, the camera comes in and out as well, all from like one perspective, as if you're looking at a comic book.
Yeah,
which I found really, really cool, that first fight.
Yeah,
and there's other ones with Astanos, and played by Tom Wisdom, and the captain's son, and Michael Fassbender's character Stelios.
Stelios Kontos.
Then there's a good fight with those two, like working together. And it's just a lot more fluid camera. I think just really well done, that stuff.
Yeah,
for me. My favourite bits is, I think you mentioned it briefly, is like with the little montage scene, like with the really cool electric guitar. And I think my favourite bit in that, when Astanos like throws a spear at the giant rhinoceros, and there's this really cool tracking shot that goes down his cape from behind, and then just before the beast like gets at him, he like turns away, and then it's just like stops right in front of the camera, which all in slow motion, of course.
Yeah. I thought that was
really
a really
cool.
good shot. That was really nice.
Yeah.
It looked cool, built suspense, and then it's like, it's a payoff. It's like, yeah, okay, killed it.
But one thing that didn't look cool at all, and was just weird as fuck, is the black goat playing the cello. I'm like, what the hell is that
what the
about?
hell was that about? It's like, it does seem like every time you cross into like Xerxes' camp, it gets weirder and weirder and weirder. You got a man with sword hands. You got
I can't even tell whether that's just like a headdress or if it is actually a goat.
No, I think maybe.
I don't know.
Do you know? Apparently, this film was like banned in Iran because it was seen as like offensive to Persians. Because
I'm not surprised.
And it's like, yeah, I would. Could you imagine? It's like, this is like if Braveheart, when it goes to the English, it depicts us with goat heads and like bare feet and fucking devil tongues and walking on hooves. It's like. It's absolutely absurd. Every Persian looks like a complete monster.
Because, like, when the immortals take their mask off, they look not human at all.
No.
Just completely disfigured.
Exactly. They're essentially zombies. They are fighting an army of the undead or something. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is proper strange. I thought it was funny when he's actually wandering. Ephaltes is wandering through the like harem or whatever the hell he's got. Xerxes has, and like all of these. This is a lot of weird stuff. I don't know why he thinks this is like, oh yeah, this is cool. Because again, you have goat head man, no explanation. A sexy woman who's got no arms and legs for some reason.
Oh yeah,
what the hell is that about? Yeah,
certainly a lot of that stuff just doesn't hold up, and it's just like as you say, it's just weird. I'm like, why? I don't get it.
Yeah, Xerxes sounds like a freak, like a really, really strange person.
And also another character that needs cough medicine as well, to be fair.
Yeah, he does. He needs to sort that voice out. Yeah, he needs an operation.
Have you got a favourite shot?
Where Leonidas gets hit with a bunch of arrows. I think one, it's cool, but almost every shot is cool in this film. But it's a great way to just end this story on, just thematically and... I think it helps that the journey and all the fight scenes and all this other stuff going on. Has this big emotional thing of like, oh, my queen, my wife, my love.
Yeah.
And then, boom, loads of arrows, and he's like Christ form.
Yeah.
That was a great shot. Yeah, that's probably my favourite.
I think mine is actually right at the start of his of Leonidas' journey, where he's just like a teenage kid, or not even a teenager, where he's right at the start where he's killing the wolf in shadow in the background, so he's like in the foreground on the left, like spearing the wolf, and then silhouette then there's the shadow of the wolf on the right hand side of him being speared. I thought that was really, really cool, and obviously that whole scene kind of just foreshadows the rest of the movie. With Leonidas going into that narrow cavern, and enticing the wolf in there so he gets stuck. So score then, Boaz.
So yeah,
directing.
with directions, it's very stylized. Also we haven't even talked about like the big elephant in the room when it comes to how it looks. It has this bronze filter on like every shot, so every shot looks like really warm and quite bright. So it definitely has a style that is unique to its own, and the kind of like deliberate, almost artistic, like scenes where stuff goes. Okay, the way I can think of it is, you remember where one of the bad guys is offering the E4s like a load of money, and his face goes down in shadow, but it just goes completely black. It was like that's the sort of thing you would see on an artist do or whatever, and they kind of make that happen. So there's so much you could go on like loads about the effects and how it's shot, and it's very, very stylized and it looks really nice.
Because they shot it basically on one sound studio. I think there's one shot where they did on location with the Persians like riding horses along the field. That was the only non-studio shot, because I think they basically built this massive rock set and basically shot at all different angles on a sound stage, all blue screen around them, so it was quite efficiently shot actually, I guess. But the cinematography in the effects certainly marry up pretty well to how the comic book looks, But that was definitely what they were going for.
I would say, one of the problems I would say, from a location point of view is, there's not like a huge variety of places that our characters are in. They're in the hot gates where it's most of the action. But even when it goes into Sparta does look quite bare. Like it's not.
Yeah, it does look quite boring.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like a very vibrant place. It's like just a couple of people.
Yeah, the visual tone is very. Yeah, it's not multicolored, is it? No. Not like Watchmen is, It's all very much one tone, one color scheme for both locations.
Yeah, basically, really. So
what's your score for directing?
So I would say, like, directing, mainly because it's just really pretty to look at, even the action scenes, even despite the heavy use of slow motion. Maybe I would give it, like, a 7.8.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there's a lot of issues, I think, with the film now, which a lot of people would be offended by, with its depiction of disability and things like that. And as we said, it's great, but there's not a lot of variety there. And I think Zack Snyder is certainly using this film as kind of an experiment to see whether his visual style would work. I mean, apparently it took a lot of convincing from Zack Snyder and his team to convince the studio that this would work. He did a lot of like short test footage for the studio to convince them to do it. So yeah, I think I'll probably go like 7.5. All right, screenplay then. Yeah. I kind of liked the scene where Leonidas is taking all his men off leaving Sparta, taking them off to the hot gates. And the senators come to meet him and say, what's going on? And he said, "Oh, these are my personal bodyguard. I'm just taking a stroll." And the senators know exactly what they're doing, but there's nothing they can do about it. They can't defy their king. And the king technically isn't breaking the law because it's not enough men to call it an army.
And he's just going for a walk. If they happen to run into some bad ne'er-do-wells, it's not their problem, is it?
He's got 300 personal bodyguard.
Exactly. But I like that. Where are you planning to walk off to? I was thinking north, but it's like, they know where the hell he's going.
Yeah, everyone in that conversation knows what's going on, but they can't do anything about it properly, in terms of Spartan law.
I think my favourite thing about the film, from a, I suppose, script point of view, which it has going for it the most, is just like the dialogue. And it's not necessarily like the dialogue between characters, but the wit that almost everybody seems to have. Loads of people have awesome lines where you're like, wow, this is cool. Especially, I think, about 70% of them go to Gerard Butler. He says some of the most badass things.
Yeah, definitely.
In the film, I think, than any other action hero.
Spartans, ready your breakfast and eat hearty. Tonight we dine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's no haggis on the
Yeah, no, I love that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. They look thirsty. Well, let's give them something to drink. And then they push them off the cliff.
Our arrows will blot out the sun. Then we'll fight in the shade. It's like, you can just hear the rock music just anywhere. You know, just put on. It just every time they do one of those awesome lines, I would completely forgive it if any of the characters just put on sunglasses. I know that's like anachronistic. It shouldn't be, but it's fine. Just have Gerald Butler go, you know,
Reservoir Dog style.
Yeah. This is Sparta. Puts on some sunglasses. Pulls out a bass guitar.
Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense though because they're fighting in the shade. What's going on? You don't need it. They got shade already.
Fuck it. Who needs it? You know, you can look cool. You don't need to be practical. You know, screw it. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, that's one of the things I think is like the logic of the film versus the cool factor. Like the cool factor doesn't match up to the logic. I find it funny. Like, he kicks out
giant elephants.
Yeah, giant elephants. Like, what the hell? But I thought it was funny where he constantly is, you know, not constantly. Ephaltes is like this deformed man who betrays them, and he only wants to help. So he's like, I'll fight with you. It'd be great. You know, my dad's taught me how to fight my whole life and stuff. And he's like, oh, that's a fine thrust, but can you lift your shield? And he's like, He's like, no, I'm sorry. You know, we have a shield wall, and you know, we fight as a unit. If you can't do that, I'm sorry, I can't use you. Yet they constantly break shield wall to do spinning twirls and it's like
that doesn't ring
come the hell on, man. Just let Gollum have some action for Christ's sake. But yeah,
it's interesting with the character Althetes. How do you say it? Altheates.
Althetes. I don't know. Altheates. I don't even know what I said. Ephaltes.
Ephaltes, yeah. At the end, like, just before they're all about to die, he sees Altheates, and he says, you there, Altheates, may you live forever. And it's like the ultimate insult for a Spartan to give another Spartan.
I think the Persians hear it might be like, oh, I guess he likes you, but it's like, no. Like, it's already told you at the beginning of the film, the best thing a Spartan can hope for is a good death in battle. So it's like...
Yeah. But apparently in Greek language, Altheates means nightmare, or to be described as someone as an ultimate traitor, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
But the other interesting thing is I kind of love the scene where they meet the Arcadians on the way to the Hot Gates, and the Arcadians complain that the king hasn't brought enough men for the fight, and then Leonidas asks them, oh, what is your profession? And some of them says, oh, I'm a potter, I'm a blacksmith, etc. And then Leonidas says, Spartans, what is your profession? And they shout, oh. And I'm like, oh, okay, bird calling, cool.
Yeah, that would be funny.
You know, so I'm like...
Yeah, that would be funny.
And he says, you see, old friend, I brought more soldiers than you did.
Yeah, I like it.
And plus, we're trying to call some giant eagles to help us.
Yeah, from the Lord of the Rings universe. Help me get to Mount Doom.
But again, as I mentioned before, the Persians just... I didn't mind the slaughter, to be fair, because I was just like, they're fucking idiots, man. I'm like... The fourth time the Persians asked Leonidas to lay down their weapons and kneel just really irritated me. I was like, are you deaf, people? I know, you know, they're not going to surrender. I think the script is trying to say that make out the Persians are like really arrogant, you know, saying it 4 times. But I mean, come on. They're not going to surrender. Try a different strategy, people.
Yeah.
You're killing lots of messengers and generals in this film. 4 times.
It's quite excessive.
Anyway.
Yeah. It's pretty. It's still pretty cool. I suppose it gets them. You know, it gets the Persians actors and stuff some dialogue rather than just like, you know. At least they get to say something.
Yeah. One of my bits that I found quite funny was when you know, King Leonidas is talking to Xerxes, the God King, in person, and he's like. The idea of kneeling, you see, slaughtering all those men of yours, it's left a nasty cramp in my leg, so kneeling will be hard for me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, Xerxes, basically you should have come back later in the day, or the next day, you know, maybe he might have kneeled, his leg might have got better, you know.
Yeah.
Just poor timing. You don't go, you know, talk to the king after a battle. I mean, the guy's exhausted, he ain't going to kneel.
A nice leg massage.
Yeah.
Kneel.
Then he might have kneeled, you know, then war over.
Saved a lot of people. We should talk about, like, the scenes with his wife. there's like a B plot, plot and a plot and a B plot. So
Yeah,
her
with Lena Headey.
Yeah, her trying to, convince the Senate to support the army.
Dominic West. I liked it, but I didn't love it. I think certainly Lena Headey is really underserved in this film for me. And half the time when you get to that, when you get to those scenes, you're like, yeah, I'm not bothered. I want to see all the cool action now. I don't care.
Yeah.
I get it. It serves the story, but I'm just like, either give those scenes more time, make these characters more fleshed out and things, and give less time to the action, or just don't have that stuff at all. And this film isn't short either. I mean, it's a good, I don't know, about hour and 50 minutes. So you could have cut a lot of that stuff out, and the film, I think, could have still worked.
Definitely. Also, it's not much of a revelation, but because her main nemesis is one of the senators who's corrupt and working for the Persians and stuff.
Yeah, Dominic West.
It's got her mental duel with him and stuff, which is ended in the least cerebral way, just by her stabbing him in the middle of a Senate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it was kind of it was a bit of a silly B plot, really, but yeah. I thought it was a badass line of hers though, where she turns that onto him because he has sex with her and is like, "This won't be quick." That was it. This won't be quick.
And you won't enjoy this.
I'm not your king. And then she says the same thing. This won't be quick, and you will not enjoy this. I'm not. your king. But it's kind of funny because he died very quickly. So I don't know if so those it didn't really work, that line. But yeah.
I think the final thing on screenplay for me, I really like the end with Dilios's speech. The way it's structured at the end, because it starts with Dilios addressing, the Senate when he gets back, and then it cuts to, dead Leonidas full of arrows, and the camera kind of pulls up into shot and revealing all the rest of the Spartans dead. And then it ends up with Dilios addressing the rest of Greece. And he ends by saying, "For Leonidas and the brave 300 to victory." It was just a really satisfying moment, and it did make hairs go up on the back of my neck.
It was pretty badass.
It was just a really rousing, let's kill the bastard.
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I like that.
I thought it's really funny. It kind of made me laugh rewatching it. Well, not fully laugh, but smile. It was epic, but also I was like, how he enunciates, his mouth is always in every word he says in that speech. Good God. Yeah, he's got a big mouth. Powerful voice there.
Yeah, I just like the way that was structured, actually, going from 3 different locations. You got a favourite line out of all the epic ones?
Man. Maybe I'll go with just the simple and basic, which is iconic for the film, of "This is Sparta." I mean, who hasn't heard that bloody line? It's synonymous with the film. So yeah. I'll go simple.
Mine is actually quite not an epic one really at all, but I kind of use this in life sometimes when I've hurt myself. When Dilios, played by David Wenham, who's, as we've said, is the narrator of the film, he puts a bandage around one of his eyes that he's lost in battle, and Leonidas is like, "I trust that scratch hasn't made you useless." And then Dilios says, "Hardly, my lord, it's just an eye. The gods thought to grace me with a spare."
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
I love that. So good. Because I remember when I was helping my dad move furniture around because someone was leaving
lost an
out.
eye.
And no, my arm. No, my arm hurt, and I was like to her, "Well, God gave me a spare, so it's fine." And she's like, "What?" Okay. So I have used that in real life.
Nice. Am I going to see you one day? You're missing an eye, an arm, a leg. It's fine. I got a spare.
It's cool.
Yeah.
So, screenplay score.
This isn't the most thought-provoking film in the world. It's not meant to be.
No.
You're just meant to just see him kill things, and it does that. And I would say, the lines are they're just epic. They're kind of hammy. This film is so cheesy, and the dialogue is so cheesy, but I love cheese, and it's just it's a smorgasbord of delicious cheese. So
Even
Stinking Bishop. This has got the best cheese. So on the rate of cheesiness, I'd give this maybe like an 8. Yeah, maybe.
8?
Oh, come on. Should I do higher?
No.
I'll go 8.
No.
Yeah, I'll go 8. I'll go 8.
All right, that is very generous.
It's very generous.
In my opinion. Yeah, there's a lot of epic lines, but I mean, again, as we said in directing, like certainly you write all this stuff in. You know, the film would be about 45 minutes if it was all normal speed. So again, the stuff in the Senate,
Yeah, no, I don't like that
just
stuff.
kind of bored me a little bit. And the fact that the Persians literally asked the Spartans 4 times to like lay down the weapons and surrender. I'm like, just what are you doing? You're gonna die. You know, so I'll go. I know this is my pick, but it's not really because you picked Watchmen first. So I'm like, 6.8.
Okay. It's pretty low.
Acting then. You got any favourite performances?
Just Gerald Butler, really. You know, yeah. It's Gerald Butler. I mean, you know, the other guys are kind of cool. Like, especially, I think, just the other Spartans. Yeah, you know, like his captain, he was pretty cool. I liked him.
Yeah, the captain is actually called just the captain, you know. He's played by Vincent Regan. Yeah, I really like his performance because, you know, when his son dies, he just turns into a man full of rage and despair. And the directing style is actually really different and interesting because they don't do any speed ramping in that. And the camera is very much in front of him the whole time when he's taking out a load of Persians. So you can see his face the whole time, you know, of that, you know, this rage and despair on his face and sadness. It's a really interesting bit that to capture that performance. I really like that. And there's another great moment from Vincent Regan as well, where near the end when they're all dying and like he's been speared right through his abdomen and he like pulls the spear further through his body to like get closer to the Persians so he can take them out before he dies. I'm like, oh, that's a really cool death.
Yeah, he was pretty badass. Maybe my second favourite character after Gerald Butler.
You know, certainly Gerald Butler and Lena Headey at the start are really, really interesting. Just before, like, you know, Gerald Butler kicks the guy down the well, he basically gives Lena Headey a look before he does it because he knows that this could be like seriously dangerous for the country and for Sparta. He just gives a look of like approval. Shall I do this or not? And she's like, yeah, nods. It's just a really interesting moment from those two. Also, I'm not sure why the messenger would like protest right next to a well. I'm like, seriously? Why? I wouldn't stop there, dude.
No, I'd turn around.
It kind of comes out of nowhere. But...
Yeah, they should have said, could we just do the negotiation somewhere else? Why the fuck are we doing it around this giant well?
Yeah, there's like a big hole here. If you don't like what I'm saying...
Let's go outside. Let's out the...
You could just knock me... Yeah. You got a meeting room or something? Town hall, we can talk.
Privately.
So
me and you.
I'm not very thirsty, you know. I know a lot of our Persians will be thirsty later, but I'm good.
I love the, you ask for, what was it, water and earth, you'll find plenty down there. So yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah.
And also I love the roar, like, Gerard Butler gives right at the end when he's dying. But you don't hear any of it, obviously. It's all, the sound is all cut out while Dilios is talking. You know, it's really great, because you can tell he's giving it everything, because he gives, like, this little head wobble, like... because he's just shouting so loud, you know, and giving it everything, and the slow motion really captures that. Yeah, I mean, my favourite performance is Gerard Butler, I would say. Is that yours as well? So acting score for you?
I am going to give it 7.
Yeah, I think the acting's pretty good in this, to be fair. I mean, certainly it's not subtle. No. Nothing's subtle in this, but... certainly, Vincent Regan is really good. I really liked him, and Gerard Butler, and obviously Lena Headey doesn't get a lot to do, but what she has is she, you know, does her best with it. So I'll probably go 7.3. Right, let's add up the scores then for 300. 300 gets
300.
44. No, it's out of 60. Get it right. 300 gets 44.4. So, not great. I'm guessing no one really knows what your pick is, so
Yeah, so...
what's your pick?
Well, who watches The Watchmen, my friend? So it's Watchmen. The answer is The Watchmen.
Awesome. So why did you pick Watchmen ahead of any other Snyder films?
I think, honestly, just put on the spot, it was like the only one I could think of which wasn't like in the DCEU. And I just didn't really want to do those. I mean, I've watched them enough, so, yeah. I could have taken, I suppose, Man of Steel or something like that, but I just decided to do Watchmen.
So tell us a little bit about the plot of...
Okay, yeah. So this is a alternate history, basically, of the US. It's like, what if superheroes existed from, like, the 1930s onwards? And this is like an alternate 1970s where nuclear war is imminent between the United States and the Soviet Union. America
80s.
Yeah, America has outlawed superheroes. It still has like a major superhero working for the government, Dr. Manhattan, giant blue naked guy. Yeah, basically the old team gets back together when somebody kills one of the superheroes, one of the retired ones, the comedian. Yeah.
The comedian.
Yeah, so it's a mystery that kind of spirals out of his death, of who killed him, what's going on,
Your best.
Yeah,
I think.
I think it's quite concise, actually. That was really good. Yeah. Really concise.
Yeah, I think with this film, there's a lot to say. Obviously, this is adapted by Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore's classic graphic novel, which I think was once voted in the top 100 of best books ever written. So, this was quite a task for Zack Snyder.
It isn't the first time this has tried to be adapted either. Apparently, they've been trying to adapt this film
really?
many, many times since like the 80s or whatever.
What tried and failed?
Yeah. They've tried to make this film quite a few times.
I think a lot of people did say that this is probably unfilmable. This film would certainly work better, I think, as a limited TV show rather than a film, because there's so much to pack in here. Let's kick off as normal with directing.
Oh yeah, I should I suppose preface this with me and you have watched two completely different versions of the film to research this film. So I watched the Ultimate Edition, which has, I don't know, about half an hour of extra stuff added to it, like live action stuff, as well as maybe 10 minutes or whatever of like an animated film spliced into it. So yeah, I recommend that.
Is that with the pirate?
Yeah, with the pirate comic and stuff. Where the pirate is what was it? The sea captain who it recounts is played by Gerald Butler, which is funny. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's quite funny. It all comes back. In circles, yeah. So one thing that I think is different between the director's cut and the theatrical version is the action scenes are quite a lot longer, Really? I was kind of surprised just watching it. You're like, oh, this is a little longer than I thought it was going to be.
What, with like Night Owl and Silk Spectre like breaking out Rorschach? Is that a lot longer?
I don't think that fight scene was extended, but the fight scene where they get absconded by criminals, that's a little longer. Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
And a few other ones as well, I think, where they fight Ozymandias at the end. I think that was a little longer. Plus there's an entirely new fight scene in the film for the director's one, which they should have added to the theatrical one. One, it's a great fight, and two, it has like... So I'll just try to explain it for Martin here, who hasn't seen the scene. But the original Night Owl, the old guy who, the second night down.
Yeah.
So a bunch of... I can't believe they cut this out, because this was in the comic as well. So a bunch of criminals think that he's the Night Owl that broke Rorschach out of prison. So they go over to his house to kill him. And they start beating him up. And he starts fighting back. And every time he lands a hit, they change into one of his supervillains from when he was... it's such a great scene. I've never seen it before, and I was like, "That's amazing!" That I'll say this, Martin, find that scene. I'll find it for you, and it's a really good scene. I can't believe it was cut out, but yeah.
Do they show more of the stuff from the 40s with the Minutemen?
Not as much. Well, they do in a way. There are more like flashbacks to that era, but they're not like new. A lot of it didn't look like new footage. It just the same flashbacks repeated a bunch.
Oh, okay.
So
right. 'Cause that's what I was quite disappointed by, because there's a lot of stuff in the book with the original Minutemen, the original Watchmen, that they don't use at all in the film, which I think certainly is the heart of this story, is about what the Minutemen's values is all about.
So
when you get
what
to
was
the
it?
end.
One thing that was an extended like back in time thing for the director's cut, which was of note, like I noticed it, was what was it? So where Ozymandias gets the team back together and the comedian like insults him for this nonsense. It's like, none of this matters. We're all gonna die from a nuclear holocaust anyway. That bit is a lot longer. The speech is longer. But
But I think what this film does really well is the credit sequence. I really liked. It chronicles like the history of this alternate world, where the original Minutemen to the 80s, where you see the Watchmen, and it ends with this graffiti on a shop window of who watches the Watchmen, and then some guy just like throws like a Molotov through the window, and then I think my favorite bit in that is when like Dr. Manhattan meets an astronaut.
yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was kind of cool.
I love that intro, and I've watched it many, many times. I think it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, intro to a movie. Like opening credit scene, it's just great.
Yeah,
and of course it's it's not heavy use; it's entirely slow motion. The whole thing is slow motion, so you can tell it's Zack Snyder. Yeah, very cool. Have you noticed it has a bit in it where it's like in the 1930s where it starts, and this guy punches out a criminal, saving a family in an alley or something, and there are posters of like Batman behind him. It's so weird. But yeah.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Didn't
So it's like he sort of saved, I think, Bruce Wayne's parents, but there is no Bruce Wayne, but there is a comic of Batman. Yeah, I don't know. Strange.
Yeah, I mean, at times you can certainly tell Zack Snyder is trying to do as much as he can to like condense this story down as much as he can, but I don't think it works sometimes. I mean, I really liked the brutal fight scene with like Daniel and Laurie when they're fighting the gang in the alleyway, and there's a lot of like broken bones, and it's really like quick and really quite brutal, which I quite liked. Really, really hard hitting, but it's intercut with like Dr. Manhattan's interview. I don't think it entirely works. I think I guess it works in one sense when Manhattan says the world will still be in danger with or without nuclear weapons. That works where it's intercut, but with all like the stuff where they're accusing him of causing all these people he's been in contact with has got cancer now, and they still intercut that stuff with the fight. I'm just like, I'm not sure it entirely works. I think he's just trying to condense everything in. I'm like, how does that relate to this now? I don't see that personally. As you said, obviously there's a lot more in the ultimate cut in that scene. So
I don't think it kind of helps. I don't know. It slightly helps the pacing, but not really. There is still a thing of this film of it is cramming way too much in such a short amount of time, and it does feel like it just feels like a bit much. Even though I will mention this in a minute and in more detail, I do think it impacts the acting. Yeah, I do think it like seriously impacts the acting. I'll get into this more in depth when we go in acting, but my kind of score of the acting is a little lower just because it just seems like there's so much they have to get through that I'm not sure if enough attention was placed on a lot of the scenes they were in. It just seems to be to get out as much of this dialogue as possible, because they've got to rush through it. They've got to say it all. So I do appreciate his faithfulness to the source material, but it's probably a little too faithful of like trying to cram in giant conversations into 2-minute windows or whatever.
Yeah, because there are literally some shots that literally look exactly the same in the comic book.
I think he's done,
which I do.
He's done his damnedest to make this a perfect recreation.
But I really love the soundtrack in this as well. It's, you know, all along the Watchtower. I really love that bit when they're going to the Arctic. That's how I kind of discovered Jimi Hendrix in a way. Just hearing that song. Oh, this sounds amazing. Who sung this?
I think the placing of certain songs is just you know, makes the scenes even more incredible. And just how they just come in.
Apart from one. And I think you probably know which one I'm talking about.
Maybe. Yeah.
What the fuck is up with the sex scene in Daniel and Laurie?
Oh, yeah.
Having sex in Archie, and they have Hallelujah playing. I mean,
and it's also, have you noticed it's the same? It's the same version of Hallelujah he used for the Justice League trailer. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Where they where they announced the Snyder cut, he put that version of Hallelujah. Which I'm not going to say anything to Zack Snyder's taste. He must really like that song. I don't like the cover version he's got of that song. Whatever. Do you know what I mean? I just don't like it. Yeah,
it's just way too on the nose, and just like, I mean, they even come out of slow-mo going at it really fast, and then all of a sudden Laurie like presses the button on the flamethrower, and the flamethrower goes off right at the end. I'm like, oh god, seriously?
Were you watching this with your parents?
Cheesy. Yeah, well, we talk about cheesy stuff. I mean, fucking hell.
Yeah, that was pretty.
Yeah, that was ill-judged, I would say.
Oh man, one
of song choice.
So I now I'm going to get quite confused because of the version I've seen. If this was in the version you saw, I think it was. But do you remember that like nightmare scene he has where he? Because that's also from the comics, and I thought that was amazingly recreated. Where it's him naked and her naked in just a barren wasteland on Mars. On Mars. And he like tears her skin off, and there's her costume, and she tears his skin off, and it's his costume, and then a nuke goes off and incinerates them. I fucking love that. That was awesome.
Was that during the first sex scene?
It was. It was after. It's kind of after like the first. So they have an attempt as like normal civilians to try and have sex, but he can't really get it up. And it's like,
he's like,
hell, you know.
I can't get it.
It's like that sounds like Jimmy Stewart if he was having sex or something. Oh hell, oh shucks. But and then he has that weird dream.
There are some really creative shots, actually. I don't know whether this is straight from the comic book or not, but when Daniel and Laurie like meet Rorschach in the prison when they're breaking him out, Rorschach's like, "Excuse me, I need to use the men's room." And then Rorschach goes into the toilet and to meet the mob boss that he obviously doesn't like.
I like, the door swinging in and out as he's getting closer. Like,
yeah, it's really clever, that. And then you cut to, like, literally streams of blood coming out the toilet. Yeah, that was really cool. But weirdly, my favourite shot is, like, right near the end where the journalists are accidentally, like, spills ketchup on his T-shirt, which has a yellow smiley face on. You know, it's just this whole thing of this whole thing is a massive joke, really. I thought that was really, really clever at the end. You got a favorite shot
when the explosion does happen, which it's building through most of the film, and the quote unquote bad guy sets off, where they kind of get the city gets incinerated. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was really cool. Yeah.
All right.
Any kind of singular, I don't know, anything other than that. Comedian falling out of a window. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Actually, do you remember
any shot related?
Yeah, do you remember that bit? The comedian is crazy. I like him, but and also played. He should have been in the film more because I love the guy that played him. He's the same guy from The Salvation and
Cold.
Oh fuck it, I don't know. Negan. I love Negan.
Jeffrey Archer.
Jeffrey Dean.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan. No Names Boaz is coming out again.
You're teaching me how to speak. I'm like a baby. Yeah, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Okay. He's cool. I like him. And I even like him as the comedian. I just like him. You know, he's cool. I love where it's, what was it? Flashbacking to Vietnam. And just before he burns a guy alive, he lights his cigar with the flamethrower. It's great.
Oh, it's nuts. Yeah, he is a pretty nutty character, to be fair.
And played by a pretty nutty actor, so it's compliments.
So I think Zack Snyder actually wanted him to play Batman before they cast Ben Affleck, I think. Okay. So, which I think would be
that would be really cool. I think my only problem is I like him having fun. Like, I like it when he chuckles and he's like, he gets really kind of, I like his energy when he's happy, as a happy good guy or a villain or whatever. I think he mainly does, he can do a really good villain. Like, he's intimidating because he's so energetically, he just loves the chaos and it comes out in his performance.
Yeah.
And I think for Batman, he would be able to do the dark and broody because he can do that. But I would love him to have fun with it. But I don't see Batman smiling much. I don't think that really suits the character.
No.
But I think he's best when he's like doing wicked smiles and stuff.
So directing score for me, I really appreciate that, Zack Snyder is trying to adapt this film as a movie. Because I think this film certainly would work a lot better if it was like a limited TV show. And obviously there has been a TV show called Watchmen, but that's very much a sequel TV show. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent.
I
That's
liked
really
it.
cool. But yeah, if they did that, as a TV show, the original book, then it might have been better. But I do appreciate his effort here to try and to make it into a film. Maybe in the back of his mind, he kind of knew he would get the chance to do an ultimate cut. I don't know, but I guess the one thing a lot of fans didn't like was the fact that they didn't use like the squid thing at the end, the octopus. It's just like an energy blast. I think that certainly did bother a lot of fans. It didn't bother me too much. I get why they didn't do it at the time, but I think if you made this film now, I think he would have put the octopus in there for sure.
That's one surprise I had with the TV series. So for the film, they go, it's almost like, nah, that octopus thing is so wacky, like nobody's gonna buy that in a movie, and so they do it. Oh, Dr. Manhattan's gone nuts, instead of Ozymandias pretending it's an alien attack or something. But I love it how in the TV series they just full blown go with, no, it was an alien attack. We're going with a squid ending, and it's like, that works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not so crazy,
Yeah, Damien Lindelof's TV show is not related to the film at all.
It goes off the ending of the
It's very
comic,
much going from the book, So directing, I think I would go for 8.2.
Yeah, I think that's quite fair. I think visually, again, just like 300, really cool film. It's done really cool. Everything's stylized and it's cool. I think it looks maybe a little better. There's a little more variety, I think, in the color and like quality of camera work. I like the when we were talking about 300 has like this deep sort of bronze look of everything. This has like a blue hue to it, but it's not overpowering, but it gives it a sort of distinct personality. I like the CGI in it. There's lots of really cool shots.
I really like the film noir-y aesthetic as well, certainly with the scenes with Rorschach.
Any scene with Rorschach is just the best, and how he's handled, like, how he looks. I love his mask. I love the fact that it moves around. I think that looks cool. In the book, it's not. It's
Jackie Earle Haley is awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So really, really cool. I think he plays a pretty cool Rorschach as well. So I'd probably go a similar thing, like maybe 8.2, 8.3. Also, if you feel like watching it, I would watch the director's cut or the Ultimate Edition or anything like that. I would say, Martin, check that out. Especially the additional scene. I can't believe it. A fight scene that they just cut out and then put back in. But that was great, where Hollis Mason thinks he's fighting his old villains. That was great. It's great. Yeah.
So 8.3.
I'd say 8.3. Yeah.
Right, screenplay then. There's a lot to unpick in this screenplay. I think one of my favorite characters is actually Sally Jupiter, the original Silk Spectre. She has some really interesting ideas and things she goes through in this film. And there's one bit about 30 minutes in of the theatrical cut where she says to, I think it's Laurie, where she says, every day the future looks a little bit darker, but the past, even the grimy parts of it, keep on getting brighter. And then you go into like the 40s scene and, I guess you see this horrible, brutal rape that the comedian does on the Silk Spectre. But she's kind of just saying that even that life that she had in the 40s was just so much better than it is now. Yeah, as I said, I was just a bit gutted we didn't see more of the stuff in the 40s, when there's a lot more stuff in the book there, which they didn't explore here.
So my thing with the script is mostly it uses a lot of the same lines, there are some adaptions in the dialogue, but most of it is kind of well, I wouldn't say ripped, but taken straight from the source. A few differences here or there, but mostly kind of the same. Yeah, I think some of it doesn't work as well as in the book. You know, I think this is more of I'll get into sort of the acting, like how it's actually like delivered. I think because there's, as we were saying, there's quite a lot of story to unpack in a relatively small film, and there is quite a lot of dialogue in some areas where it just feels like it's being, trying to, it's being forced. Yeah, it just doesn't come across as natural. And it just seems like either, again, I kind of agree with you, it needs like a series, maybe, maybe even just like a 6-part first season or something like that to get through it at a reasonable pace. Or they should have completely reworked the script of it so it could fit like easier. Possibly, so that's I think my major gripe with the script is instead of like essentially just translating that, maybe they should have changed the script up so it could have actually fit the film rather than trying to force this script, trying to force this film to fit the script. I'm not sure if it works entirely.
Yeah. I think I agree with you there because there's a lot of like psychological and really big questions and big ideas this film explores, which is great. I really like that stuff, but you definitely take away from a lot of like the character stuff. You don't really know like what these characters are like, really. You know what their ideals are, you know what they stand for, but you don't know who they are as people enough, to actually feel a lot of emotion for them. And certainly, as I was saying with Silk Spectre, Sally Jupiter, that original one, I think she's a certain character that maybe they do fairly well with that. But yeah, I would say, the comedian and Dr. Manhattan are basically the same character for me, but just they see the world, the same, that the world is literally going to destroy itself at some point, whereas Manhattan is like, the world's, he's basically a nihilist at times.
He's completely apathetic. He's like whatever. Like he even says, and I think it worked better in, it seemed a bit out of the blue for this film, but where he's talking in the interview, and he's like a dead human being and a living one have the same amount of particles. So he's like, I don't give a fuck.
It's like nothing means anything to him anymore. There's no like any emotion there with him anymore. It's just a fact that, the Earth will die at some point. But with the comedian, he's basically saying the same sort of thing, but he's just seeing it as a joke. That no one else can see the funny side of this. That the Earth, Russia and America will eventually destroy each other. He's like, no one else can really see this. This is basically what's going to happen. And he just sees the funny side.
I would say, actually, there are two sets of characters who I think are kind of the polar opposites of each other. So the comedian and Dr. Manhattan, I kind of agree. They share that sort of apathetic nature towards, mankind. Whereas, in society. Whereas Dr. Manhattan, he just doesn't care really anymore. Whereas the comedian thinks it's hilarious. I think the other two who are kind of in the comic and in this film are like spiritual brothers, are like Ozymandias, the bad guy, the blonde who does this thing, and Rorschach as well. I think they're very much one of the same kind. So like Rorschach and Ozymandias, they want to save the world, and their dedication is just insane, But Ozymandias is rich and loved. Rorschach is poor and like hated. But they're doing whatever they can they think they can save the world. The only difference is like Rorschach has rules that he will not break. Like evil people must be punished, guilty people must die, don't touch the good, all this stuff. Whereas Ozymandias kind of goes against that. He's like, the ends justify the means. And to be honest, the film kind of vindicates his side. He's right, he wins. And Rorschach dies,
Not necessarily, because the journalist finds Rorschach's diary at the end, which has the truth.
Yeah, I suppose if you could put it into your head canon that his plan is fucked up. But as much as all the other people try to go against the plan, the heroes, they eventually agree with his plan, even though it's the more immoral plan. And yeah, Rorschach does. Yeah, but I suppose you could put that, ending. Did he get away with it, or did?
They believe the lie that he's created.
Yeah. So, but this is the thing. It's like these deep philosophical conversations you can have about the source material are not like from the film. You hear about it through the film, but they're just like adaptions from the comic. Yeah. So I'm not sure if the film tries to say anything sort of uniquely on its own. Something that it didn't just get from the book. But
yeah, the comedian has some really great stuff, and I think certainly for me the scenes that really establish his ideals in this film is when the comedian like drops down off Archie and he starts like taking out the mob of protesters against masked heroes, and then Night Owl comes down and asks him, "What the hell has happened to us? What's happened to the American dream?" And the comedian says, "What happened to the American dream? It came true. You're looking at it." And it's like, yeah, we've done our job now. People don't really give a shit about superheroes anymore, obviously, because this has come from the government. Yeah, we can sort this. Nixon is our hero. Yeah. We don't need fucking masked heroes anymore. But obviously you learn that the comedian is basically an informant for Nixon. And he's just like, yeah, this whole thing is a fucking joke. Yeah. And he's basically like, yeah, these people don't need help anymore. And he's just having fun being a superhero. Yeah. And the people don't really care how ugly they look anymore. Yeah, and there's some interesting stuff with like Dr. Manhattan as well. The lines that kind of encapsulate his character. When he goes to Mars, he says, "Perhaps the world is not made. Perhaps nothing is made. But clock without a craftsman, it's too late. It's always been, always will be too late." As if he's saying it's just too late to save the world now. And he's just examining these oblivion concepts and, why care when everything will cease to exist at some point, Certainly that line for me encapsulates where he is at. And there's other bits from John. When John takes Laurie to Mars and he asks, like, "Oh, what will the future holds?" She asks, rather. And he basically says, "Yeah, there's going to be a lot of death." And she's pleading with him, and she says, "John, please, you have to stop this. Everyone will die." And then John's like, "And the universe will not even notice. In my opinion, the existence of life is highly overrated phenomenon. Just look around you. Mars gets on perfectly well without so much as a microorganism." And then it takes a bit of a rush turn for me, I think, because then he basically shows who Laurie's dad was, and it was obviously the comedian, and she hates that fact. And he basically has like a big change of heart. The chaos of the world, you can create life in the chaos of everything, and I just felt like that concept was a bit rushed through for me. That he has a big change of heart. I was like, oh, okay, I think you need to extend that scene a bit more for me. But when he's such a big intellectual, I always found
his change of heart, like even in the original source material, as kind of nonsensical. So so I'm not sure how you could have changed that. It's like, I don't know, it is kind of strange. Like, how do you go from, you purely establish him as, to be honest, he makes some damn good points. Like, what is the point? Like he basically beats you over the head with his way of viewing things. Like, there's no point in me getting involved. And then it seems like something very simple is what switches him around. Just the fact that somebody quite likes Laurie. She was she had chaotic
I get it.
upbringing or something. I do like how she breaks down hearing that fact. I thought that was a really good performance there. Yeah. But,
yeah, I really like the concept. I think they should have just extended that scene a little bit more, of just this whole idea of, this chaotic world. You have just, this love and hate kind of thing. With Silk Spectre and the comedian, they fucking hated each other, but from all this chaos with their relationship, the fact that they, that the comedian raped her, but you still have this beautiful thing in Laurie, her daughter, so there is great life from chaos. That whole thing, but so I guess they should have extended that a little bit. So you got a favourite line?
Okay, so one of my favorite lines is where Rorschach he's been sent to prison after a really cool like fight and then psych evaluation. I love how he kicked the shit out of those cops. I think that's great. It definitely looked like like the fight scene from Batman versus Superman. You could tell. I was having vibes of that. Obviously, the one in Batman versus Superman, where Batman goes like ham on those guys. I was getting vibes from that. And anyway, so he goes to prison, and this guy's trying to like bully him, and he throws like chip oil on the guy's face and beats the shit out of him. And then I love the line of, "You misunderstand. You think that I'm trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me." I love that line. I think that's a cool line. That's my favorite. Because that's badass, That's like, all of these fucking guys should be terrified.
Yeah, that's my favorite line.
All of these guys should be absolutely terrified that this guy's in prison.
He says, "You people don't seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me."
You're picking on the superhero who kills every single guy he comes across. Why are you picking on him? Yeah.
Yeah. He's the anti-hero one, man.
He'll kill you dead. It's like, I don't know.
So, screenplay score for me, as we've kind of said, they're trying to pack in so much, and I think they just leave out a lot of the character stuff. I love all these psychological ideas and questions, certainly from the comedian and Dr. Manhattan and even Rorschach, that they, as you said, they don't feel like well-rounded characters.
So this is my main problem, and I think it definitely impacts when we're going to talk about the acting, where it does seem like when you talk about the script, it's like, what screenplay? It's like they've taken most of the book, the graphic novel, and they've gotten rid of some bits, but most of it they've just shoved it into this. And while I'm grateful, and there are some really great lines because there are great lines in the source material, and even though they've taken bits out, it's still too much for such a short film. And it does feel like they just have to get these lines out as quickly as possible. And while it means there are some really good quotable and memorable parts in this film, when you rewatch them, they don't really have the impact that they're going for, because you just don't feel it. You just don't feel, again, as you said, they don't feel like, most of the time, there are a few exceptions, but I think a lot of the performances, they don't feel like proper characters. They just feel like they're actors trying to get the characters' lines out. And this just...
You admire it more than feel it.
I quite I like what he was going for. As we were saying, like, about the camera work and everything like that, I like that. The actors as well, I like them. The script, I quite like it, and the dialogue and stuff. But just the amount of stuff that is adapted, and the short window to get it through, it really impacts, not really like the script, because the script is good because it's taken from Alan Moore, but it impacts the delivery of the script. It impacts like the actualization of it. It just feels like the actors are not given enough to come up with, or to kind of work out their characters. Do you get what I mean? So a lot of the scenes I like in isolation, but then when you try and you listen to it, you're like, it sounds good, but I'm not really believing it, I don't know. That sounds like really pretentious way of talking about the script, but...
No, I don't think so, because it's certainly a revered book, and you want it done properly, and for me, you end up admiring it rather than feeling it.
So I think, with me, I think the actors that kind of get it can get across their parts, I think, really well, even with having a lot of the dialogue the same. I like Rorschach's, the guy that plays Rorschach, I like even how he does it, even the fact that even his stuff can be quite wordy and quite intentionally to the book. I still think he does that more naturally than some of the other actors. He can do his dialogue pretty well.
Yeah.
But I suppose maybe he doesn't have as many lines, I don't know.
So I'll go like 8.1, I reckon.
So I will give the screenplay a high one because it's a good story and they try to adapt it perfectly. As I said, my main thing is the performance, which I think is a result of the screenplay. But I would give the screenplay itself, just like you, I would say maybe like an 8.2 or something like that. Yeah.
Acting, then.
This is, again, going to be my big
Go for it.
So I keep bringing it back when we were saying directing and then screenplay. The major problem I have with this film is the acting, and it's not that it's acted poorly. It's just, for me, I don't buy most of it. You know, it just feels like they're trying to get these lines out. You know.
Yeah.
So there are some like standouts for most of the actors. Like Laurie, I can buy her when she was on Mars. Most of that scene I couldn't really buy, but towards the end, she knows it's like the comedian. She's like, what?
Yeah.
No. And then that, I can kind of buy that. And there are other little bits as well. So there are definitely performances from many of the actors that I do like, but most of it is like, I don't know. I just don't feel the emotion behind a lot of the delivery.
Certainly, I think both our favourites is Jackie L. Haley.
Yeah, Rorschach. I can't actually say a negative about the about the guy that plays Rorschach. I like the character one-off, and how he's done, I think, is really good. So I'm not going to say a bad word of that. No.
Yeah, and Carla Gugino, who plays Sally Jupiter, the original Silk Spectre, I really liked her. I think Billy Kudrup, unfortunately, he doesn't get a lot to do, because I think they actually just CGI'd a lot of the Dr. Manhattan stuff. It's not performance capture, so he's just doing voiceover stuff, which, again, I think if you make this film now, yes, you definitely have the octopus in there, for me, in my opinion, and obviously you would have Billy Kudrup actually acting in a mocap suit, you know.
I think that's also like a major problem. It's like Dr. Manhattan is a pretty cool character, and he's quite iconic. And I guess the whole thing, because you could say, well, there's not much of a performance from him. He's pretty deadpan. You don't really feel anything for him. I suppose that's what the character's meant to be. He's meant to be completely detached from the mortal realm. That doesn't mean it makes for good acting, you know. It doesn't mean it makes for good, like, engagement. He is pretty, cold. I think the only kind of bit you get of any sort of motion with him is where he's being interviewed too much, and he says, like, leave me alone. And that's like the most you get of like any sort of range. But I wouldn't blame the actor necessarily for that, but that's just like the screenplay. That's just how that character's meant to be.
There's another weird head tilt in this film. Did you notice that? Yeah. With Rorschach. Just as Rorschach opens the door to escape the police, the cop misses the door handle as he's like opening the door, and it hits the floor, and then Rorschach just does the head.
Yeah, I love
head
that.
Tilt.
I love that.
It's like, what the hell are you doing
really?
down there? Fuck you.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
And tortures them, yeah. But yeah, Jackie L. Haley is amazing as Rorschach. I think certainly, both our favourite performances, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I love, I because it's funny. I like where he does the stuff with the mask, but even without the mask, I prefer him like that. And he has like tremendous range on like his face and just how he can act it.
Certainly when he dies, there's death scene. He's amazing in that. It's like, just do it already.
You could tell it's just the way he conveys it. He doesn't want to live anymore. Please put him out of his misery, I've seen too much, man. You get all of this from him. I think he does a really good job.
I really love the interview scene with the psychiatrist or psychologist. He's telling his backstory, and then at the end, he says, "From then on, I knew God doesn't make the world this way. We do." The way he delivers that is just really great, because he's just trying to hold back his emotions and anger, because he sees the world in very much black and white. People are either evil or not so evil to Rorschach. It's just a great delivery there from him. My
most disappointing performance, and mainly because of how important the character is into this, but he's quite bland in this film, even though he is like majorly important, is the guy that plays Ozymandias. Yeah, I don't know. I just wasn't feeling him.
Matthew Good. I thought he was quite good at the end.
But it's
actually when he's just this realization from him where he's just like, I've just killed millions and millions of people. That whole delivery at the end when he's looking at all the screens. I thought that he was quite good at it.
As I said, it's my main problem with the sort of direction of the acting into this. You can, and I said this before, you have most of the actors do give like one or two good scenes, like genuinely good acting, but most of their line delivery, and I would even say this with Ozymandias, the guy that plays, is just really quite to the point. It just, I don't know, it just kind of lacks that punch for me. And I just wasn't feeling him. I wasn't buying him until maybe that, you know.
I would disagree there. I think for me, I think Matthew Good plays Adrian Veidt like really well. Like for that character, you don't need to try too hard. You shouldn't need to try a lot with the character because it's well written anyway. I think, and I think he plays it really well for me. I think it's more like the Laurie, the actress who plays Laurie isn't great for me. Malin Akerman isn't amazing.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Yeah.
You know, Patrick Wilson, I'm not sure. He's okay. Our third Patrick Wilson film, by the way.
Wait, I remember one of them. What was the second one? There's one where he got his balls taken off.
Hard Candy.
What was the other one? Aquaman. Aquaman. Okay.
Aquaman.
Yeah, I remember.
Last year. But one of my favourite bits from Daniel is literally right at the end when he kind of loses it with Adrian, because he's literally just seen Rorschach be killed by Dr. Manhattan, and Adrian says to him, "Death, a world united in peace, there had to be a sacrifice." And he's like, "No, you haven't idealized mankind, but you've deformed it, you've mutilated it. That's your legacy. That's the real practical joke." He's really great in that. He just, again, this whole kind of scene that we kind of covered in The Hunt, where he's just punching him, loads of punches, and he's just resisting all the time. And with this, it's not because of guilt or anything. It's just because, there's nothing more I can do. I've done what I've set out to do. He's done what he's done. In his words, the world a better place. And it's just really interesting, these two ideals that these two characters have, and the film questions at the end. You know, one saying the only way humanity can stop just destroying themselves and is by giving them a common enemy, you know, in Dr. Manhattan, you know, create this lie that Dr. Manhattan has destroyed the world so they can come together in peace. But what Night Owl Daniel is saying is like, well, no, you've built all this on a lie. This is not human. This is not natural human behavior. We're all a bit fucked up. And going back to the Sally Jupiter's thing, is she liked the past more than the future and the present, is because, yes, what the comedian did to her was horrible, but the chaos of all that brought out, you know, this wonderful thing in Laurie for her. Basically, what Daniel was saying is that human nature creates a lot of chaos, but in that we create life. There is a lot of good that comes out of humanity as well. You know, you can't just have this idealistic utopia based on a lie, which I really love. These two ideals like clashing at the end with those two performances. I thought was really good. You know, with Matthew Good being kind of really cold in delivering his line, and then, you know, Patrick Wilson being really passionate in his ideal. You know, I thought it was just a really great way to end the film. Yeah. You know,
so I would still, I think I'm sticking by being disappointed in the, you know, performance of Adrian. I don't know. You know, I kind of get you. Yeah, he's meant to be smart, and it's kind of restrained. I was just expecting like something more impassioned, or maybe that's just me. But you know, and I do like that scene where you're talking about where he breaks down and everything like that. So I'll just recap my kind of thoughts on the performance, because I've just said this many times, but with the exception of a few performances, like I think especially the guy that plays Rorschach sticks in my mind. He's like consistently quite good. With most other performances, it just seems like they have scenes where they have to spout dialogue. I don't really believe anything they're saying. They just have to get through it. But they might have one or two scenes, especially towards the end, where it feels like they're really going for it. Like, where you say, Pete Wilson. Why hasn't he got that intensity throughout? You know, why... Patrick Wilson. I'll get the names right one of these days, you know. But, like, why doesn't he have that quality throughout? It just seems like... And, you know, the only thing I can blame, you have to blame, is kind of the direction. It's like, I don't think each of the actors were given enough time to really get comfortable with each of the scenes that they were in. They're in quite a lot in such a short movie. You've got so many scenes. You've got quite a lot to remember. I don't think it was. Yeah, I don't know. It's just. I get a lot of this feeling. Like I was rewatching it, and just certain scenes, I'm like, I can't believe these performances are this bland. You know, this scene is this bland. I love the dialogue. I love everything going on, but everything just feels quite bland. And then you have, maybe one or two really good scenes. This is another reason why I think it's not that it's unadaptable or unfilmable. It's just it would probably benefit a series because they would have had more time on each scene. Do you know what I mean? Each chapter. I think that's what would have improved it. Especially like the acting of it. These are capable actors. They have good performances in this film. It just seems you've got lots of scenes where they're just quite bland. Yeah. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on the acting there.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would agree on some of that. Yeah. But I certainly do agree that it should have been a limited series. So, acting score.
Yeah, to me, this is kind of a mixed bag. There are some good performances, but there's just so much that I'm just like...
I'll go 7.8 then.
I would say like the best of it
probably
is 7.8. There are, again, performances I quite like. There are scenes I quite like. But I think as a whole, I would probably go a little lower. You just take it as a totality. There's certain scenes that kind of disappointed me that I thought they would be... I don't know, just a lot more memorable, a lot better acted, and just constant. I just don't want to have this feeling that I know a person is acting, and there are too many scenes like that where it just feels they're just trying to get the dialogue out. Yeah, to me that just means the scene is kind of undercooked.
It's a shame because I think we won't get another film adaptation for a long time. I don't think, or ever. I don't think, and I think maybe the people at Warner Brothers probably should have been a bit more patient with technology. And just when this film was made in 2009, it was still literally right at the start of this superhero resurgence, really. We had Iron Man and The Dark Knight, really top quality films that really kickstarted this huge phenomenon of great, mostly great superhero films. And now there's just so much great confidence in the filmmaking now. Whereas if you make it now, you would have the squid. Maybe even make this a trilogy or something,
I think even put it a little longer in the oven, just a little bit more development. Do you know what I mean? So maybe they can practice these scenes a lot more so that they come off a lot more fluid. Just give it a lot more time. That kind of stuff. And, maybe edit some stuff. So again, if I'm to take this film as a totality, I do like the actors. There are some great performances. We already been through the story. I love that and a lot of the lines. I would kind of maybe give it like a 6.8, just because there are scenes where I know the actors could do better. Yeah.
Oh right, okay. So it's all Zack Snyder's fault.
And I think it does jump out to me that it is a fault with Zack Snyder and his direction, because as I say, I don't want to harp on it. I've said it so many times, but it's just what I pick up rewatching it, that you have scenes where they're talking to each other and it just feels bland, and then you might think, oh, these actors are bland, but then you might get a really good performance much later on, and so it makes me think, no, they're not bland. It's just like they've got very little to work with, and then maybe they were given a little more. It kind of makes it stand out more that they're not doing as well as they could.
Right, let's do the scores then for Watchmen. So Watchmen gets 47.4. So Watchmen wins this one, over 300 for Zack Snyder films. I think this possibly could be our lowest scoring winner on the podcast. Yep, it's our lowest winner. Our next lowest winner was Wonder Woman with 47.7. So Watchmen is at 21st place. And 300 is 22nd out of 27 now. So there's some joints as well. So next week we'll be doing a subject for the film on Godzilla versus Kong. Can you guess what the subject will be? It's quite a fun one.
Pokemon?
Pokemon? Where do you get Pokemon from? Godzilla versus Kong.
Charizard is like Godzilla. There must be a monkey Pokemon. I don't know.
No, there's like one Pokemon movie.
Yeah, we just do that.
We're doing films that feature
Oh man, that's
verses
so cool.
in the title.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I'm excited.
All right, that's it then for this week's lengthy podcast. It might be split into two. I don't know. So thanks, Boaz. As ever, you've been rather good.
Okay.
All right. Okay. See ya. Bye. Are you going to say goodbye or?
Bye bye. Love you so much. Don't leave me. No.
Okay. Bye.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast or on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off.